People are just like, oh yeah, I want to be rich and I want to retire early. How are you doing that? Oh, working real hard.
Yeah.
That's not going to do it, right? Putting a plan in action and saying, I have to do this for my future self. That's the definition of delayed gratification. Welcome back to How to Invest in Commercial Real Estate, the coolest, the best, the biggest commercial real estate investing podcast in Jinx, Oklahoma. Woo!
What the hell time is it, Braden?
It is distribution time, baby.
Our favorite time of the year. And if you are invested with us, most likely you got checks in the mail or direct deposit to your bank account.
Except for Stephanie.
Yeah, by the way, if I'm still sending you a check,
Stephanie yet.
Stop it, right? Like, please let me send you a direct deposit, please. Isn't direct deposit so easy? Mine get direct deposited. It just shows up in my account. Yeah, it's amazing.
Nice. So how much are we sending out this quarter?
Well, Precision, as normal, is sending out a ton. Let's get that out of the way.
Okay, yeah.
So big.
We sent over $600,000 out. We're over $2.5 million in distributions on invested dollars. Nice. So pretty awesome. Yeah. Yeah, I love sending people that I know that trusted me with their money. I love sending them checks back.
Yeah, that's amazing. Criterion for the fourth quarter is what we're talking about was $250,000. So $850 between the two just for the fourth quarter of last year. You know, when the world was seemingly ending.
You know, people, you wonder, okay, why can't I get in these investments? Every time they launch a deal, it fills up. Well, if you can appreciate that we're sending out over $3 million a year to our investors, right? That's $3 million that they have in additional investable cash ready to go back in a deal. And because we're earning them high returns, that money's just waiting for the next deal that we send them. And so as the investor network grows and the pockets of the investors get deeper with cash that we keep sending them back, it's going to be harder and harder to get in the deals.
Yeah, and I will always say this, right, when we're talking about it, but we love getting people in deals. So if you want to get in a deal, email us and say, hey, guys, I've got X amount of money. I want to get it in a deal. I take priority on that because I love getting new people in deals.
We always talk about every deal before we actually launch it, right? We say, oh, we're looking at this place or this place. So if you're watching the podcast, then, email us and say, hey, that sounds interesting to me. I want, first right of refusal or something, or put me down for $20,000 preliminarily or something. And then they can have a chance to look at it and decide whether they want it or not.
Always.
But we've had people do that. So,
all right, next exciting thing we're going to talk about is the results of our cold plunge challenge.
Yeah, I got to start being careful what I say on this freaking show. I mean, we had way too many people do cold plunge videos, but it is exciting nonetheless watching all the videos of you guys going through the pain. I'm sure you've probably seen my video, which is, I didn't suffer through a lot of pain. I got to be honest, guys. I kind of did like half of it. You know what I mean? But
you know what I liked?
I'm okay.
I'd say, I don't know if you guys watched them all. I watched a good number of them. Aaron can probably tell us, but I'll bet it was 70% female, 30% male, maybe 75-25. And I would say 95% of them were under the age of 35 or 30.
So my takeaway on that
I like that following.
Yeah, for one, we love younger followers because as you're going to learn later in this show, it's so important that you start investing early. It makes all the difference in your life and where you end up.
Yeah.
But the reason I think we had so many young people is turns out young people don't have as much money as older people on average. And they're definitely more courageous when it comes to doing outlandish things.
Pretty sure we didn't have any 64-year-old men doing it for $100.
Yeah, that's right. They're like, I ain't doing that for $100. And the college student's like, I'll do that for $100.
Yeah.
And so maybe we'll have an age limit next time just to keep it, spice it up. I don't know.
Yeah.
But thank you guys for sending in the videos and having fun with that. Not only is it good for you, it starts your day off right, but it helps connect different communities with this podcast, and that's what we wanted to do. So who's announcing the topic for today? Is it me?
Yeah, I mean, real quick, if you submitted a video, we're going through right now. There's a decent amount of submissions that we're going through. Just make sure you liked, commented, subscribed, shared, tagged us, all of the good stuff. You don't want to go through a cold plunge and then not get $100 because you didn't share the video. Don't disqualify yourself. Yep. And then that being said, we need to come up with the next thing, right? I mean, we need to come up with the next way to mentally torture ourselves, I guess is what I'm saying. So maybe if you have an idea, leave in the comments below. We'll try to be thinking of something as well.
I was thinking go with an experienced skydiver, and then you have to jump off without a chute, and you have to let him catch you on the way down. And as long as it all works out, we're going to give you $100.
So some guy did that, right?
I've seen that, yeah.
Jumped out of the plane without his chute, and somebody got it on video.
I know, I saw that.
Yeah.
Did you notice real quick on the cold plunge challenge? It was funny because it's almost like the old ice bucket challenge. Remember, someone did it, and then they tagged someone and said, "You're next." Did you guys notice that?
Yeah.
They were sending it to their friends and said, "Hey, you're going to do it next." And
I saw a few people didn't, like Braden here, didn't get in all the way. I said to the neck, but I guess they thought that means to the waist.
Yeah. Well, that's okay.
What was interesting is some people jumping in with
Clothes,
with like
hoodies.
full hoodies and sweatpants.
Yeah. Like
I did not understand that.
Like that was going to keep them warm.
That's going to make it worse. This is literally going to make it worse.
Especially, when you get out.
All right.
Anyway, the topic of the show today is super important, like you said, and it is just we're at the beginning of the new year. A lot of people are setting new financial goals. A lot of people are setting a goal of, I want to save X amount of money. I like money, whatever that goal is. There's probably something money related in it. And we just want to remind you that as you're saving and starting your investing journey, the size of your return matters.
Yeah, there's two things that matter most. It's the size of your return and the time that you can give it to grow. And you can argue that the time is just as important.
Oh, yeah. Definitely.
And so, we've done a show like this before, but it's been a long time, and it's one of the most fun things we get to talk about. And I think it can help motivate people to get them over the hump to start their investing careers. And so what we did, we tried to take kind of like a median household income in the U.S. I think we chose about $60,000. Okay, we're not... obviously we can't cover what $200,000 dollars and like someone that makes $25,000. We tried to pick something that is going to relate to the most people.
Yeah, but if you want to do this yourself, just Google discounted cash flow formula for retirement, and it'll pop up.
And so what we wanted to do is the first one is we're going to focus on the size of the return or the rate of return you get. And so the scenario is this. You make about $60,000 a year in combined household income. And remember, we took a dump on Dave, and Dave's advice was 15%. Mm-hmm. Okay, so then we said, okay, that's easy. That's $9,000 a year or $750 a month. And we wanted to start with just a little bit of cash. So we said, okay, most households, if they sold some used furniture and they did a few things, they could come up with $5,000 in starting cash. We didn't want it to be a huge number. We think most average American families can come up with $5,000 to start.
Yeah, that's a tax return for most people. In COVID, that was, what you got for being alive. I mean, people come across $5,000.
Yeah. So that's the setup. Is you make $60,000 a year, you have $5,000 in the bank, and you're going to start your investing career. And we're starting it early, guys, because we want to show the power of the time, and we're going to start it at age 24.
Right, age 24.
And we're going to go to your age 66. Okay, that's 42 years. All right. So, Brian, you got the numbers. So let's say that I'm conservative, I'm a little bit risk averse, and I want a mix of some bonds and some safe stocks. And so what kind of return should I expect? And then if I invest that money, $5,000 and then $750 a month for 42 years, what does it get me?
Can we nickname these groups? Like, what would we call a 24-year-old who only wants to earn 6% of their money? Like, that's got to be just...
It's a little conservative.
Yeah, okay, let's call it super conservative.
Yeah.
Okay, the super conservative 24-year-old.
Conservative Karen.
Conservative Karen. Oh, yes.
And we picked 6% because that's a good average for just bonds and some safe stocks. And so after 42 years at 6%, $750 a month, all that time, it's $1.685 million.
Conservative Karen, $1.6 million
at 66.
So that's interesting because that tells me that most American households, by just saving $750 a month, can get to $1.6 million by the age of retirement. And guess what? Not very many people that are 65 today have $1.6 million.
Correct.
So that should be eye-opening. All right, let's say that...
Again, you're investing $750 a month every month for 42 years.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Yep. Okay, so let's go. Let's say that you're going to do an aggressive stock portfolio, maybe the S&P 500, Russell 2000, mostly all stocks. What's the rate of return and where they at?
Well, so let's call this guy normal norm.
Yeah. This is pretty standard for people. So we picked 10% as an average.
Okay,
and after 42 years, it'd be $5.33 million.
See. That's juicy.
It makes a big difference.
Norm is doing okay.
Yeah.
I mean, he's a multi-millionaire. I mean, we'll get into inflation a little bit later on. But I mean, that's a decent amount of money, and theoretically you can have that invested somewhere. Hopefully you're getting a dividend on that. It can just appreciate and you're living a decent life.
So ask yourselves while you're listening, is in my current situation, am I able to save $750 a month? And I would say the bulk of our listeners would say yes. And so then we would ask, are you on your way to having $5.5 million at retirement? And if you're not, then you got to ask yourself, well, how do I get there? What changes do I need to make?
Again, an S&P 500 index, $750 a month on average is going to get you about a 10% growth a year. That's very, very realistic.
Yeah, just sign up and make it come out of your bank account every month.
Yeah.
So you don't even think about it.
Robinhood, auto buys, whatever it is. There's an app for everything.
All right, let's go next. We'll call this group, I don't even know what we're going to call the last group, but aggressive Andrew?
Yeah, I like that. He's a bit, he's not settling for normal.
He's not just going to do an index fund. He's going to maybe have a balance of some riskier investments. I'm not sure what those are. It could be some real estate. Also stocks. Maybe he does a little day trading or option trading. He tries to get his return up to 15%. Right,
and
15%.
I would, again, categorize this bucket of people as our standard investor. Like a lot of our investors, I think, have a decent amount of money in the market, and they're just trying to supplement and juice those returns in commercial real estate with what we're offering. And maybe blended, they're bringing down 15 a year in between, everything.
Right. So at 15% after 42 years, it's 24.387 million. So that's really impressive.
Aggressive Andrew is solid.
He's killing it.
So I don't want to go with all, I guess the first one was Karen, so we don't want to go with all dude names. But yeah, so how much was that again?
24.4 million.
Guys, that's on $750 a month.
15%.
Making 15%, which is not unheard of. And you're at millions of dollars.
So many million, like you're living in whatever house you want, wherever you want to, right? You're sending your kids to college. You and your wife are driving whatever cars you want, you and your partner, whatever. There's an unlimited almost allotment for vacations. You have unlimited time freedom. And again, you started with $5,000 at 24, which we established most people can do. Mm-hmm. You got 15%. So let's say half your money is earning 10%. The other half is earning 20%, blends out to about 15%. Again, a lot of our investors, I think, are achieving a blended return of their portfolio of about 15% and will be killing it.
Yep.
Now, this next group is pretty aggressive, even more aggressive than Aggressive Andrew. So I don't know. I want to give her a really kind of a smart name, because this person has got to be pretty savvy. Maybe Savvy Sally. I don't know. In order to get...
Extreme Edna. I like that.
And so, hey, this person has got to be both savvy. It's an extreme rate of return, but we're saying, what if you could get 20% average return? Now, guys, is that unheard of? Absolutely not. We've delivered far better than 20% return. But here's the thing, is to get that kind of return, it's hard to do it consistently without a break. We may hit an investment that has an IRR of 40% or 50%, but it may only be for a year and a half. And then the money has to sit till you get invested in the next deal. So, but to average 20% is very doable if you've got some winners that are coming in above 20 and maybe some coming into the mid-teens. Averaging 20 is not impossible.
Yeah, I would say this is, a business that you own that you can continually reinvest in and grow substantially is a very normal case scenario. I would say, house flipping, or a lot of people who just start buying houses for retirement, I would say if they're doing it and pushing rents and continuing to expand, they can get a 20% return on their money. A lot of our investors, a lot of passive commercial real estate investments in general are underwritten to generally double your money every 5 years, getting you about, 20% IRR. It's harder to find those deals, but if you're paying attention and you're connected in the right outlets, they're out there for sure. And then again, a lot of people are taking this and saying, okay, I want to be exposed to a little bit of all of it, right? Mm-hmm. And that's why we did, I think, so many of these case scenarios.
All right, so if you're 20%, only investing $750 a month, starting with $5,000, where are we at when we're 66?
Believe it or not, it's $115 million.
42
years at $750 a month.
It's a ton of money, right? Like you're the richest person in your family. 100%.
Yeah.
So we did, Braden, you wanted us to do what would happen if we went from 24 just to 40 years old.
Yeah. So I think that's an important point, right? Because it was just last
Like
week.
if somebody wanted to retire at 40, say.
Yeah, I want to retire. Yeah, I think
Maybe went to 42.
Yeah, it was 22 years from 24. So I think it was 45, 46, I think.
Okay.
Or maybe
Yeah.
20 years from
Something like
24.
that,
So
yeah.
mid 40s, right? I want to retire when I'm in my mid 40s. I think we're wanting all of the listeners, the watchers, all of the people we know to try to reset that story that we're telling ourselves of I need to work until I'm 65. That's ridiculous, dude. Nobody wants to work until they're 65. So let's go through the parameters.
Okay, so you started age 24, $5,000, $750 a month, up to age. We probably did only 44 years or something like that, years old. So that's only, 20 years. And it's $3 million.
Yeah.
So it's not bad, but at 40 years, I don't know, 40 years old, I don't know if 3 million is enough. But as you mentioned, if you're invested in commercial real estate and you're getting 10% cash on cash, you're making $300,000 a year in passive income.
And the 3 million is still growing.
And $3 million is still growing, right?
Right. So
After that.
10% on 3 million, we're living a $300,000, almost $30,000 a month, like $25,000 a month. So badass house, amazing cars, college tuition, right? And I think this is very realistic because for a lot of people, we want money to buy time and generally nice things. But I know a lot of people that have a decent amount of money and they're boring as hell. You know what I mean? They've got all sorts of money and they just don't know how to spend it.
Yeah.
Most people don't need more than $3 million. Like, what do you need it for? Unless you want a yacht, bro. Like, sit at home and be with your kids, go on vacation. You know what I mean? But most people have a lot more than $3 million and they don't do shit.
Well, and we picked 20. He's excited. Picked 20 years, but you can see you're kind of at the tipping point because you start with basically zero, and 42 years is 115 million at 20%, but 20 years is 3 million. So we didn't do the math, but if you went another 2 or 3 or 4 years, that 3 is going to double to 6 or 8. And that's where you really could retire. So maybe we picked the wrong number there. But I think the point you were trying to make is if you get started early and you're diligent, you absolutely can see yourself retiring in your mid-40s. And most people don't even think that's an option, so they don't try.
Rich, telling your boss, like, hey, man, I'm out. Peace at 45 and just doing whatever the hell you want. I think that's understated. Anyway, I'll get it down.
All right. I like it. Okay, so now we've really shown how the rate of return blows up your amount of money that you have, from 6% to 20%. Now we want to go back and say, okay, what happens to those returns and the money when you wait to invest? So many people in their 20s and 30s aren't investing. They're just spending all the money they have. They're going to clubs and getting table service, and they're buying cars that they can't afford. Living in the new apartment that's twice as expensive as the 1980s apartment. It's all these decisions that you're making leaves you without money to invest. Well, this is what it costs you. We're going to go through those numbers.
Procrastinating Pam.
Okay, is that who this is? Okay, so this is if you start at age 35 and go to 66 years of age, and so it's 31 years. Everything else is the same.
We're starting at 35?
Yeah.
Most people get their head out of their ass at 35. I think that's a good benchmark.
So at 6%, it's $814,000. So it's about half of if you started at 24, age 24.
Okay.
10% is $1.8 million. 15% is $5.2 million versus the $24 million. And then the 20% rate of return is $15 million instead of $115 million.
Wow. So waiting 11 years on the 20% scenario cost you a theoretical $100 million. That 11 years. I hope you had fun.
Yeah.
I hope your 20s were fun.
$100 million worth of fun.
Yeah, $100 million worth of fun. No, your broke ass did not have $100 million worth of fun in your 20s.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm so happy I had a baby when I was 20.
But hey, here it gets worse, guys, because so many people, and probably plenty of people that are going to see this podcast, they might be my age. I'm 45, and they don't have any real meaningful savings. And I'm not faulting you; it's just a fact.
Took a bit longer to get that head out of that ass.
Yeah. Or maybe they had circumstances out of their control. Maybe they lost a job and needed the funds. Whatever. It's not a judgment show. But same scenario. Now you're at 45. Mm-hmm. You're going to invest for 21 years now instead of 42 years.
Yep.
All right.
So 6% is $387,000.
Not enough to retire. No.
10%, $639,000.
Still not enough.
15%, $1.2 million, $1.235 million.
Hey, I think that's enough.
Do you think?
I mean, again, right? Like, if you're not getting a new house every time you can, like if you just buy a house, it's paid off. You buy a car, it's paid off. Like you can live on all of these net worths and retire at 65 and be fine, right? You're just not doing whatever the hell you want.
Yeah.
Well, we also need to mention the inflation because we're talking about today's dollars.
Okay. Yeah, we're about to slash the shit out of these numbers.
20% is 2.4 million if you start at age 45 at 20%.
So if you wait till you're 45, instead of 115 million, it gets cut to
2.4 million.
2.4 million. Wow. So time is just as big a factor as the rate of return. And so, one thing you cannot control for sure is the rate of return. Nobody can. You can't control stocks. You can't control the market. You can't control real estate prices. You can't control.
Can't control me.
Yeah, but what can you control? Right? You can control when you start. That's what you can control.
Yeah.
And so take control over at least that piece and discipline yourself to put money in a secure investment every single month. Now, $115 million when I'm 65. So 42 years from now is all this money. But the trap of inflation, as we've talked about, is that money isn't worth what you think it's worth when you're ready to retire. Doesn't matter what the number is. What is the buying power of it? And so what we did is we took an average inflation calculator over the last 42 years, and 42 years from now, the dollar is worth 30% of what a dollar is worth today.
Mm-hmm. Ouch.
So whatever
and that assumes we get our shit together, right, and don't have years like the past couple.
Yeah.
If you compound that, it's bad.
Yeah, and so the inflation calculator started in 1981 and went to 2023 because that's what they had data for, and so it really skipped the high inflation 70s because it was up till 1978, 79, 80. Those are some super high inflation years.
Yeah, all the way up to.
Tell us about those years, Brian.
Yeah, well, my first. You want to know what the mortgage rate was on my first house?
18%.
It was no, it was only 13.
Okay,
but that's pretty.
He's not that old.
Yeah.
So if your calculator with whatever plan you're on says you're going to have $3 million, you got to be young. If you're in your 20s, let's say, that's $1 million. Right,
yeah.
You have to triple whatever it is the number is to really get that buying power.
Yeah,
and so that's an important factor that I don't think a lot of people are considering when they're trying to decide how much money they need or want in retirement.
Yeah, that most people aren't factoring in the fact, or hopefully, right, that you don't have a ton of debt service when you're retiring. Like all of this passive income is not supposed to go to servicing your debts in retirement. Hopefully, you're paying that off, and that's why you can only invest 10 to 15% of your income, right? If you go get this massive freaking house and you retire with $1 million thinking it's going to be worth it, it might not, so you got to take that into consideration.
Yeah. Well, I was trying to think of a couple other notes that we wanted to say. This example, guys, is $750 a month. Now that may be difficult for people making under 50 grand a year, and it may be difficult for, a 23, 24-year-old just starting out in life. But a lot of people are, as their career progresses, they're going to have an ability to save way more than $750 a month, right? Any profession that makes more than 60 grand a year, you're making 100 grand. If you're making 200 grand, and there are people out there that do, you should be able to save $2,000, $3,000 a month, $4,000 a month by getting really frugal. And that kind of money can compound so much faster, and you can be out of the rat race that much quicker.
Well, yeah, we ran a scenario like that. So we did age 35. Remember, if we invested for 31 years at 20%, it was $15 million. But if you put $3,000 a month in instead of $750 a month in, that $15 million goes to $57 million.
Yeah, that's this guy's Surgeon Stu. He went to school for way too long.
Surgeon Stu, medical school, then residency, then specialization, then paying back the loans. But at 35...
Hey, nobody's paying back student loans. Nobody's paying back student loans.
And so they're 35 years old, and they finally got a job at a hospital, and they're making decent money. Maybe it's 180 grand, 200
Stu's
grand.
killing it.
Maybe even more. Surgeons make a lot more than that. So most doctors, they would tell me, oh, yeah, I could save $3,000 a month. So if you started at 35... making $3,000 a month, and you invest aggressively in real estate or with us or whatever, you got over $50 million in retirement. 30 years later. Now, divide that by 3, as we've talked about, to get your real number.
Still not a bad number.
Still not a bad number.
Yeah, so I think we've highlighted here just how personal this really is and how many different options there are in different ways. There's not one avenue to financial freedom, and there's not one predetermined time, and there's not one predetermined dollar amount and lifestyle that we all want to live. I encourage everyone listening to this, if you are still listening to this, Google, what did you Google to find this calculator?
Investment calculator.
Okay, investment calculator, that's right? It. You've got time, you've got rate of return, and you've got how much you're contributing and maybe how much you started with. So 4 variables that you can change and just do a bunch of different scenarios. Yep. We did this in 10 minutes. We planned out a dozen people's life. Conservative Karen, Surgeon Stu,
aggressive Andrew,
extreme Edna, like all of these people, right? So go in, plug in who you are, who you think you can be. Are you going to go and dedicate a decade of your life to schooling and come out making a ton of money? There's a scenario for that. Are you going to start super young and not be able to contribute a lot, but earn an aggressive rate of return? Like there's all of these scenarios, and then it actually becomes a reality. People are just like, oh yeah, I want to be rich and I want to retire early. How are you doing that? Oh, working real hard.
Yeah.
That's not going to do it, right? Putting a plan in action and saying, I have to do this for my future self. That's the definition of delayed gratification.
And the goal of shows like this, it gets us excited. Obviously, we love this stuff, but we want to motivate you. We want to get you excited about it. Instead of, getting excited about going to the bar this Friday night and blowing $150 on drinks for you and your friends, do that every week. That's $600, right? You're almost to the $750 with 4 nights of drinking, with paying $15 a mixed drink. So instead of being excited about that, be excited about your future and about how much money you can make, and think about all the people you can bless, all the places you can go, all the things you can have. That's how I did it. Is I started reading books and I started getting excited about what my future could be. So then I wasn't focused on anything else. I was focused on investing and saving and growing my net worth. So.
Or just forget all of that and have a great 20s, guys.
Yeah. Go spend that $100 million.
Except you can't.
All right, guys. Rate of return and the time you have to invest, the 2 most important factors that will determine how wealthy you are or how much freedom you have in this life.
Yep. Until then, we'll see you guys next week.
Thanks, guys.